Presented by Visa, a spotlight on women's soccer and a very exciting two-match tour in British Columbia for our national team as they take on World Cup co-host Australia with some vengeance on the mind from that final match in the group stage in Oz, but also a special chance to celebrate some legends as it was announced just last night. That is Wednesday, November the 22nd, that on top of these games, Canada Soccer will be honoring three greats who have donned this shirt. That is, of course, Sophie Schmidt and Erin McLeod, on top of Christine Sinclair, who will be playing her final match at BC Place. And included in the press release from Canada Soccer was this fantastic little nugget that I want to make sure that I get, because the number of accomplishments from these three players combined is pretty exceptional. They have won a youth silver medal in the U19 Women's World Championship in 2002, fourth overall at the World Cup in 2003, Olympic Games in 2008 for the first time, 2010 Women's Championship in CONCACAF, 2011 Pan Am Games gold, back-to-back bronze medals, 12 and 16 in London and Rio, and obviously Olympic gold in Tokyo in 2021. So three thoroughly deserving players. That is a lot of
How many caps?
As well, gentlemen, and I want to get your thoughts on this too. That Priestman has announced her squad that will participate in these two matches in British Columbia. Let's go through some of the names now and some of the standouts. Three changes by my count from the games in the last window. That is Melissa Dagenet, the goalkeeper, Mimi Alidou, and Deanne Rose, not included in this squad selection. Replacing them are Sophie Schmidt, of course, who will be honored, Simi Awujo from USC, and what I believe, and I'm hoping to get confirmation before the show is done, a first call-up for a player who won the 2023 Most Promising Female Player with the Vancouver Whitecaps, Fernandez Gray, 17-year-old from Coquitlam. She has 20 youth caps, including the U17 and U20 level. She played at the U20 CONCACAF Championship this spring in Santo Domingo. So, Oliver Platt, with all of that information said, what stands out to you from Bev Priestman's squad selection?
Yeah, it's obviously an interesting mix, as it has been, I think, since the World Cup, of, you know, having some of these veteran players who at this point we know are going to be saying goodbye. Sophie Schmidt actually coming back to the program, because obviously she retired post World Cup to play a final game. And then Christine Sinclair, obviously. But on the other hand, you have, you know, Hernandez Gray, Awujo, players like that coming back into the mix who maybe represent the next generation as well. So it'll be a balance for Bev Priestman, I think. A really good test against Australia, the team that obviously they fell far short from at the World Cup. And I think it'll be about trying to get as much out of these games as you can, and probably particularly the first game in Victoria, while also recognizing that this is going to be a celebration, a goodbye, and really a lot about Christine Sinclair as well as Sophie Schmidt, and rightly so. And the country will get that chance to say thank you and farewell.
Jordan?
I look at this roster, and for me, I think a Sophie Schmidt as well. I really like the way that she plays, because I think it's almost overlooked nowadays. In terms of everyone wants to be progressive and get the ball in the final third, but just players that are so good and their work rate is so high. I think she should be really missed. And I hope that she takes this game as almost like remember what you'll miss type thing, like have that little bit of a chip on your shoulder. It's always nice to see when players just leave out in style. But I also think a young player coming up, Ollie mentioned her name, and I just think that Bev needs to find a way to give this player a bit of leeway to run. But it's Simi Awujo. I think she's a talent. I think that, again, midfielders, guys that are players that can connect the lines and get the ball from center backs and is able to connect it with the strikers or the attackers. They're players that are coveted, man. These connectors, these ones that live in the chamber, that live in the engine room, like they're the ones that really can change games. So hopefully Bev can use this time, not just for Simi, but to get 2-3 of those players that are kind of on the cusp on that line, to just give them a bit of an opportunity, a 45, right? Give them the confidence to try to go out and improve. And then I also think it's up to the players. So many times people talk about manager giving them opportunity, but go and earn that, right? Even the times that in my short career, when I was on the bench for whatever it was, I was pissed off. But you could go around and moping around and kicking grass, or you can go and be the best person at training. Like literally like a kid jumping in preschool, like, look at me. Like, look how well I'm doing. And you're like, well, you're forced to play that player. I think it would be nice to see a lot more of those athletes that play for Canada doing that at training, forcing Bev's hand to get on the pitch.
Yeah, obviously a really nice gesture, and I'm sure it wasn't easy for Sophie to unretire. I have an idea that Christine Sinclair was in her ear saying, "This is in British Columbia. You are proudly from Abbotsford. Let's share the spotlight together with Erin McLeod as well." And just on Schmidt, she will go down as one of the greatest to wear the Canadian shirt. 224 caps, 20 goals, 22 assists, and 179 starts. I don't think she'll mind that the spotlight will be more so on Christine during these two matches, but Sophie certainly deserves her flowers as well, as does Erin McLeod. Let's talk about World Cup for the next cycle, because I think we're talking a lot about what's to come for the men's national team, and a lot of what I think people like myself are asking for is an overhaul, and the US women's national team has clearly gone in that direction. They have a couple of December friendlies against China, 10 players from Australia, New Zealand not involved in this upcoming window, and you can look at starters like Alex Morgan, Andy Sullivan, Alyssa Nair, Crystal Dunn that stand out. But US Soccer said they want to bring in fresh faces to deepen the player pool. Oliver Platt, is this something you would like to see more of from perhaps their neighbors to the north?
Maybe, but like I think it's a lot easier when you've got the level of talent knocking on the door that the US have, right? And that's the difference. Is you can drop anyone you want and say it's time for this player to move on, or you know, someone else to take their place, but you need to have a replacement. And a legitimate replacement of the required level. So I think with the US, like their supposed decline for me has been massively overstated. Obviously, other teams around the world are getting better, are catching them. There is something to that. But I also think they just underperformed over the last cycle at the last World Cup, the last Olympics. I think they're going to be better under Emma Hayes. And they have just like so much young talent that's ready to go and that would probably walk into this Canada roster and maybe even the starting 11. So yeah, it's one thing to say it. We'd all love to see it, but we don't all produce players like the US does on the women's side. It's a different level to what we're doing right now. And it's one of those gaps that we've got to try and close. We're probably never going to completely get there because it's just a bigger country with far more at their disposal. But we can certainly close the gap a little bit, I think, on where we are now. And then hopefully more of those, you know, conversations about giving the next generation a chance become more relevant because there's more players ready to take that opportunity.
To be fair, my had more to do with the other national team in this country than the women's national team, because I think Bev's done a really good job.
Same point.
Something else with that team, I clearly am not strong at math. That's why I choose words instead. Emma Regan got a chance to play in the last window. She was not included in this roster, but it is Priestman again giving young players auditions to get in, to try and deepen that player pool. Jordan, anything to add on this perspective from you?
No, not much. I think when you compare to the US, this is also a team that they go into every World Cup feeling like they should win it. Not how we feel on the men's side that Brazil should go, because I guess historically they've always had talent, and you're like, genuinely, they're a team that is a favorite to win the World Cup every single time. And Ollie's right, the depth pool for the Americans is just different. I think when it's so easy to compare Canada and US, but different nations altogether, the way we treat sports, the way we go about it, the pressure that we put on teams is just different. So I think really it's like love your own. Let's work on it in Canada. Let's really invest in the talent that we do have, and then try to do our best. I think that's a big thing when you're going against a team that was literally back-to-back World Cups before this and was going to go for a three-peat like that. That's who we're comparing ourselves to. This is just a nation that have been predominantly favored to just excel. So it's just about not lowering expectations, but just being realistic about how we want to go into things.